Okay, we're live on YouTube.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's June 3rd. This is a meeting of the Zoning and Land Use Committee. I'm Stephanie Simone Mahaney, the chair. This evening, our first agenda item is going to be a review of an application from the Bay Ridge Community Development Center for a zoning map amendment from an R4B to an R6A and a zoning text amendment to map MIH in a new 4-story 30,000 square foot community facility building. Before we begin with the applicant, I'd like to just turn the floor over to Josephine for a few minutes to make some remarks.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Josephine Beckman. I'm the district manager. I'm here at Community Board 10. And I just wanted to mention at the start of the meeting, for those in attendance here, as well as those online, that the district office received several calls today about the invitation to this meeting and its timeliness. So I wanted to explain that the board did send out a mail notice last week. We use a service by the United States Post Office called Every Door Direct Mail. And we mail to 2 carrier routes. That's how the postal people, they deliver it by a carrier route. And the mailing should have hit Thursday or Friday of last week. We also asked the applicant to send out, which is separate and apart from our community notice. We learned that many people did not receive the notice. So Dorothy, who works here, and myself, yesterday went out door to door, about 10 blocks, to hand that out. We did complain to the post office, but we really did in earnest make an attempt to notify as many people of this meeting. We learned about the certification of this just about 2 weeks ago, and we reached out to the applicant who wanted to set the meeting for June, and certainly we wanted to accommodate that, but it meant a very quick turnaround in zoning matters. When they're certified, this application is set to be certified on June 15th. So I just wanted to clarify that for those who have called today. We got a lot of emails saying, there will be a public hearing on June 15th, 7 p.m. at the Fort Hamilton Senior Center. So Stephanie, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. And so Richard, I know that you have a presentation for us. The one thing that I asked, one of the things that might be confusing for people is that this is a community facility application, but the application also includes a zoning text amendment to map MIH, which is usually associated with residential. So I don't want to jump the gun when you are ready to explain one of those points, but please proceed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. Richard Lobel of Sheldon Lobel. It's good to be here again. And a separate thank you to Josephine for ensuring that the notices went out. That's a lot of extra work, and I'm sorry you had to do that. So we're here again to discuss the center. I know that the center has been here several times before and discussed in concept what these plans might look like. I would just have Bibi just say hi, introduce herself and some others, and then I can introduce the rest of the team.
Hi, everyone. My name is Bibi Asfaq. I am the executive director of Bay Ridge Community Development Center. I know so many of you here from the community, and we're really pleased to be here with you. I'm surprised to hear that it didn't go out, because when we had a food distribution on Saturday, I met with the local neighbors and they all got the notice, which was like a yellow notice.
Yeah. One carrier route received it
and
one did not. Yes. And we actually found large stacks of undelivered. So we had the evidence. So we did find them. Yeah.
Well, we did our part. We did that on our social media.
Thank you.
About it. We're joined today by our board members, Mohammed Mashad and Zain Ramali, who have worked tirelessly in this community. They've been for 40 years without giving away any agent. And of course, our architect as well, Piero Gabucci from Axis Architecture.
Thank you, Bibi.
That's my question.
So we're going to start the presentation. So we're here to discuss 9818 Fort Hamilton Parkway rezoning. And what are we seeking here? Next slide. So the summary is that we are seeking a rezoning of one lot, block 6131, lot 1, from an existing R4B district to an R6A district. And despite the fact that the center has the site now for over 6 years, and they have not been able to develop the site, given the fact that the existing R4B zoning is somewhat restrictive. In the Bay Ridge Special District, community facilities within an R4B are only permitted an FAR of 1.65. What does that mean? It means you take the existing 12,500 square feet of this lot, multiply it by 1.65, and you get the total square footage that they can develop, which does not really allow them a lot of space to do what we do as many good works in the community. The R6A district would allow them a 3 FAR, and that would allow them to build a 33,000 square foot facility, as we're going to detail, and really allow them to fully use this space in what we view to be a respectful building envelope. I'm just going to discuss a little bit about the zoning and the land use rationale behind the application. Piero can discuss some of the particulars in terms of the architectural plans and materials, and then the entire team's happy to answer questions. I will tell you I'm joined online by Amanda Ionati, who's controlling the slides, as well as Christina Zapansky from GZA Environmental, who can discuss any environmental issues. So to jump to what Stephanie asks, in addition to rezoning, which allows us to build a bigger envelope at the site, there's an MIH text amendment. So since 2016, any amendment of zoning that allows for more residential FAR carries with it a requirement to do an MIH text amendment. Why is that? The city wants to make sure that if for some reason you were trying to find a site and build a site without affordable housing, they wouldn't let you do that. The MIH text amendment means that if anyone's going to develop the site with residential, roughly 25 to 30% of the residential square footage would need to be affordable. That is not the goal here. The goal here is to produce a 4-story community facility building, and we'll go through the numbers. But having said that, as a legal matter, you're not able to rezone this property without designating the property as MIH. The next slide. The numbers behind the proposed development. This would be a 4-story plus cellar with sub-cellar building, 33,000 square feet or 2.64 FAR. Importantly, we wanted to pick the zoning district that would allow us to get greater than the existing floor area, but to be within a decent amount of floor area, meaning not to allow for anything, an overage of floor area. This R6A represents the minimum zoning district that would allow for a 3 FAR for community facility. 3 FAR for community facility on a 12,500 square foot site would allow for roughly 37,500 square feet. So this is being built to 33,000 square feet, but it's the lowest district that we could select, which would give us the chance to do this great program in this site. What would the program offer? The subcellar here would be gym, office, and storage. The cellar, exercise facilities, a lap pool, equipment room, and kitchen. The first floor, lobby, multipurpose space with other uses. The second floor, multipurpose space with other uses. The third floor, library, youth room, museum, art studio, and classrooms, and other uses. And then the 4th story would be a conference center and visitor offices. And Pierre is going to go over the layouts a little bit now. The next slide. So to get a little bit behind the zoning and the choice of zoning and why it makes sense here. So importantly, the zoning here would allow for the center to accomplish its important goals, but it also is appropriate in the context of this property. The property itself, and we're going to see it more in a couple of slides, but you should just take a look at the existing zoning map, which kind of fades out. You know, somebody else is coming in. So this district, why is it conducive to an R6A? Well, there's already an R6A on this block. As you go to the far side of the block on 4th Avenue, there's an existing R6A district, so it already exists on this block. R6A is appropriate on wide streets. Fort Hamilton Parkway here is a wide street per zoning. It is 100 feet wide per zoning. You also have other characteristics of this block, this lot, the immediate area that make it appropriate for R6A on this block. We're going to look at that in the next couple of slides. The next slide is the tax map, which shows you the extent of the R6A zoning district boundary. You can see that right there. It is just this site. A question which many people ask me is, why is this spot zoning is doing something which is contrary to what is considered to be a well-considered plan, meaning it's out of the context of a surrounding area and would not really be conducive in terms of the surrounding zoning scheme. That's not the case here. Given there's the fact that there's R6A already on this block, given the fact that Fort Hamilton Parkway here is a wide street, as well as given the fact that on the next slide, we're going to see the area map, city planning felt, and we also agree with the fact that This is part of a well-considered plan. Rezonings of this nature, if you see an R8 zoning district put within an R1/2A district, and it looks like, you know, the odd man out in that respect, that would be more of a spot zoning. This, considering the fact that you've got not only R6A on the block, but also other characteristics of this block that make it appropriate for an R6A, it's not deemed to be spot zone. The next slide is the area map, which I think tells the story best in terms of why this is an appropriate rezoning. So we have, of course, the Fort Hamilton Parkway at 100 feet wide. We have the expressway and the overpass to the east of the property, which means that we don't have any residential neighbors on that side. We also have the park on that side. As per city planning, this is considered to be an open area in front of us, which makes it more appropriate to mass bulk of this nature, to have a building that's slightly taller than what would be existing at the site without this zoning. So in addition to that, the wide street nature of the property, the expansive area in front of the property, you also have the benefit of transportation in the area, the subway sitting roughly 3 blocks from the property. You have existing R6A context on this block. All of these things contribute to, as far as the area map goes, a context which would allow for this change in zoning. Again, R6A known to the area, known on this block, and appropriate on wider streets, as you'll see on both 3rd Avenue and 4th Avenues. And so here we have that on Fort Hamilton in this very limited setting and for a very limited use to allow for this community facilities. The next several slides are photos, which include both the site as well as the surrounding area. You can see the expressway, of course, the elevated expressway, the existing building and the existing property, and some of the surrounding buildings. I think with that, Amanda, if we just want to stop at the plans and materials, Piero could just run through a little bit about the program and the space, and then we're happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Piero Gabucci, architect, Axis Architects, been licensed in New York for 30 years. I don't speak as eloquently as Richard does, so bear with me. What you see before you is a diagram that shows both the envelope that we designed to in the R6A district and the actual building design on the bottom. So you'll see in the gray is the envelope that we've created. What you don't see is on the far upper left is the site plan. Not clear on that one. We have a modified version, but the intent you can see is that we try to keep the building not filling the site. There's a better way to say that. In other words, we'll have green space both on 99th and Fort Hamilton, as well as the setback in the back of the building that was required that we'd use as an open space for the daycare center. As Richard talked about the program, we can go to the next slide. Okay, I'm sorry. Here's the slide I was referring to. You can see the dark gray is the footprint of the building, green showing landscape around it. Also in the far back, which we the play area. But you can also see that we kept it off the what we call tax lot 8, the residential building next to it, on the top of that, creating an access to the building and also separating the space a little bit. And of course, then likewise on Fort Hamilton, the green space that we've created in the front, which is predominantly the entrance to the daycare center. I do want to talk about, we can talk about that here or the next slide. So these are the two, what I'm calling the cellar and sub-cellar to the base, to the building. In those spaces, we are creating the recreational spaces, meaning there will be a gym, a pool, a weight room, an exercise room. So all that's sort of buried below the street level. So none of that will be obviously visible. But you'll also see a kitchen and storage, which we'll also talk about next, and what's very important to the community center. We also put that down there to get it as large as possible. So these two floors below grade represent the activities, the physical activities of the building. If you go to the next slide. These two represent basically the two large or main floors. And you'll see essentially the plan on the right is the main floor. That is really two main spaces. It's a multi-purpose space, access to the street, and also the daycare center and its offices. So this is really a limited kind of plan, but it gives, I think, really a great space for daycare with the playground in the back, but also for a multi-purpose space in the front off the main lobby. You'll also see in the back, we call it a servery. Vivi and her team do a great job, and they do a lot of food distribution. And so this has become very important. And as you recall, I mentioned the 8-foot space where we have access to this area, not only for deliveries, but also for access for distribution and bringing in products and being able to distribute. So that's what's important about that first floor. You go up one level, we have, I'm sorry, keep the same slide. So on the left is the second floor, also a multi-purpose room. Again, they're not very large. It was very difficult to create one multi-purpose room with this footprint, so we created 2 semi-smaller ones. Same thing, we have a lobby and a multi-purpose room. And above the daycare center is now the offices for Bay Ridge. They currently are on 6th nearby. And so this is a place they would move all their offices. You go to the next slide. These are the 2 3rd and 4th floor. On the right is the 3rd floor. This is predominantly the youth level. In other words, what we have here are classrooms. We have a youth room for programs. We have a museum, an art studio, a library. We have a cafe. We have a rooftop terrace. So this is really designated for the youth groups that will use the building. The 4th floor, which is much smaller, and you'll see as the building gets taller that the buildings step back. This was a demand from the community center to have community spaces, that they would allow community to come in and use an office, use one of the rooms, have a gathering. So this was something that the community literally was sort of giving back and allowing use of the building for future things, for visiting groups, and predominantly for the community use. Go to the next slide. Can you go to the next slide, please? Maybe this is the last one. So I think that you can see on the bottom, maybe it's not clear with all the trees in the renderings, these are schematic renderings, that the base of the building, the 2 floors I described, was really meant in keeping with the height of those existing neighboring residential buildings. So we really made an effort to keep that at that scale. And then when you get to the 3rd floor, you can see it starts to step back and terrace, giving some more air to the building and also allowing for that youth center to have some outdoor space. And then again, the very top floor, which is much lighter in design, is also that space that I've described as being used for the community center use. So the intent of this building is really to sort of physically mesh with the neighboring height of the buildings, but then try to lighten up as we go along. As Richard mentioned, 6.4, well below the 3.0. I say well below that, it would add another 5,000 square feet to it. But it was important that we tried to maintain some of the envelope that we thought was important to the neighborhood.
Thanks, Piero. So just to sum up, we've had some goals together as a group when talking about this project. And one of them was to try to do something which was going to create something respectful for the community, and to do it in a way which was not going to be disruptive, but was going to try to enhance the community. As a nonprofit and as a community facility, the center has published goals. They have bylaws. The mission of the Bay Ridge Community Development Center is to promote and provide the highest quality activities and services that will contribute to the physical, emotional, and social well-being of the community, to enhance the quality of life and to fill the unmet needs of our community. I feel that these applications are somewhat special. I'm before the board a lot for applications, and you always have to question people's motives, why they're there, and what they're seeking to do. Here, there's no doubt it's set out. This is a center which is for everyone, and BB and everyone at the center have done such a tremendous job for Bay Ridge and for Brooklyn at large. We're really hopeful that the community board will support this. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Richard, to you and your team. I'd first like to just speak about procedure here. The committee will first discuss and ask questions of the applicant team, and then we'll open the floor to questions or comments from the public. I also wanted to remind my committee, as I have done in the past, that we are discussing the application within the context of zoning and land use, not so much the programs or the merits of the program. So I'd like you to remember to keep in mind, we should think about whether or not the applicant has demonstrated a need for the proposed rezoning, to remember that the permanent rezoning will run with the land. So regardless of what is built here, the zoning will remain an R6A with MIH. We need to consider whether or not the new site can accommodate additional intensity of use, and that the existing operational impacts are addressed or can be addressed, and does the environmental review adequately reflect the existing conditions. So with that, I also wanted to make one comment about Fourth Avenue. I'd like to understand better how it is 100 feet across, not Fourth Avenue, excuse me, Fort Hamilton Parkway. Fourth Avenue, you spoke about the R6A, that building on the corner. However, Fourth Avenue has 2 lanes in each direction. Fort Hamilton Parkway has very narrow lanes, one in each direction with a shared bike lane. So a share row, I believe it's called. I'd like to begin with the first question, or actually a comment. The EAS said that the applicant could reasonably develop the project site with a new 3-story plus subcellar and cellar community facility. And I do know that there was a plan prior to this, and we did hear it, and I'd like to know why you've departed from that.
Why we departed from?
The original plan, and how it has, what the needs are of the community that have developed since the original
To
plan.
the existing zone.
Oh, sure. So, Piero, I think you can talk a little bit about the shortcomings of the existing zoning and how we're able to get more of the programming on this, under this.
I believe there was an intern step that was in the discussion, and when we added that additional smaller upper floor, it was when it was discussed with the community that this was a possibility. There was sort of a demand put on the idea of these community spaces, that what was in it, for the community. So I think we went through that process to determine that we would add the extra floor for that from the original point of discussion. If we want to compare it, and I'm not sure that that's appropriate for or a need for this question, the additional square footage that we added for that, I realize it's a whole other floor, but it was a little over 5,000 feet, I think, that we added. Almost 6,000 feet, 5,940 square feet. So that was still within that it was around 2.5 for the actual FAR, but we're at 2.64 now. But I think that answers your question as to why that program changed and we added that square footage.
How many participants are there in your current programs, the programs that exist at this site, at the Fort Hamilton site?
Believe it or not, there are thousands, especially given the fact that we do food distributions, hot meals, programs for young children and for teenagers and young adults as well, even seniors. And one of the programs we're particularly proud of, and that's weekly, is a women's program that meets there with a mental health counselor. So we are serving thousands of Brooklynites and beyond. I want to say a lot of people come across the bridge, believe it or not, from Staten Island for programming at our center, and across Brooklyn at large.
When you say thousands, are we talking 2,000, 5,000? I mean,
We're talking maybe between 6 to almost like 8,000.
so with the new facility, how many do you anticipate participating?
When we say participating, we're talking about the bulk of the people that are coming to our center come for the food program. That's the majority of the people that come in. In terms of the people that are inside the facility on a daily basis, is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Both, actually.
Both. Okay. Well, the bulk of the people coming in, like I said, are for the food program. And I want to say maybe like we serve about 700 to 800 families on every 2 weeks with groceries. And in terms of families that are actually coming in and using the facility, I want to say about 1,000, maybe 2,000.
Okay.
And those are very like, I'm sorry, I don't have exact,
no,
I didn't
no,
know,
it's-
you know, as you mentioned, about the programming, you know, I can give you the rundown numbers and I can send those to you, the actual.
I'm just curious what can be anticipated in that, at that site, once a new facility is built, because it would not be just the existing programming that you're talking about. You're adding programming, you're adding a daycare, which is significant. A pool that so many, I mean, wonderful programs, but I'd like to understand what the jump would be between the existing number of participants and the anticipated number.
So I think that programming is not all at once, right? We're not having like 3,000 people all together at the same time. You know what I mean? So
Understood.
for example, the food program is every 2 weeks, and that's when we have a large bulk of the number on a daily basis. And I think, you know, we don't have, you know, that great number that you're talking about. For example, I don't anticipate the pool to be used 24 hours a day. You know, obviously we work on business hours like any other business. And so, I don't really expect that kind of volume. You know, if you're talking about like, you know, say 5,000 people per day coming through. No, I don't think, unless the new park that's there is gonna facilitate that many people.
Understood. But you
Um,
do anticipate more participants because of the
I
program?
mean, I anticipate that we're gonna grow with programming, and one of the things I think that, Piero mentioned is that we could be a home for other nonprofits. There are some nonprofits, for example, that are still out of their basement. There's one particular one, called Grandma's Love, who I love so much, great work that they do. And they don't have a permanent home. We could potentially be a permanent home for other nonprofits in the neighborhood that seek a home or seek a place to do their programming. So of course, with a new building and with a larger space, we do anticipate, you know, more people coming there. And there's also, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce, Albie Sache, who's also, a board member, and he is on a Zoom call. He is not in New York, but he's joining us. So I don't know if he wants to weigh in.
Yeah, hi guys. I just wanted to mention something quickly there. As far as programming, we did discuss a lot of them, and BB mentioned them. Our food program is one of the main programs that we run. One of the things that if Amanda could go back just a couple of slides to the bird's eye view, I would like to just discuss something that in the comments. Yeah, that one is perfect. So one of the questions in the comment had to do with our food programming. So if you notice what we have done, and we did this purposely, if you're looking at the servery, we made sure that that entrance is there, that door is there. So for future programming, yeah, there, the food delivery will be starting from there. And it will wrap around our property. We're trying to avoid to have individuals line up in front of other people's properties and the neighbors' properties. And then one of the things that we're also looking and exploring is to avoid potential lines is whether we increase the days of deliveries and days of serving the community through the food program, whether it's packed and it's being delivered at the point. BB, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're delivering to around 200 families, and especially seniors that are immobile and unable to come to the line. So we're trying to limit the access to the neighbors' properties from, with the new building being built. So that was done very purposely. So we can utilize the entire frontage of our property, which is 125 to 100. That's going to wrap around the property completely. So this should mitigate majority of the issues with individuals sitting on, or at least blocking the neighbors' uh, properties. Additionally, what I wanted to mention to your questions, our programs are they will not run simultaneous. They're not non-simultaneous programs. So if someone is at the gym, he's not going to be at the pool, or if someone is at the pool, will not be at the gym. So the numbers, I know that BB had mentioned some large numbers in scale. Those are overall numbers on a daily basis. I would say, I mean, our youth program and our after school program that would run out of the center would be maybe between 50 to 100 on a daily basis. And then during the daycare, you would have the spaces not very large. You would accommodate maybe 25 children. So and again, during that period, majority of the space will only be utilized for either offices or case management and things of that nature, which are very minor in numbers. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as well, because when we're talking about these large numbers, they're families that we serve, but we're serving them through either deliveries or through our food program and not at the same time. So just, wanting to make that distinction.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the explanation. I'd like to go to the committee members now. I know there are several or a few have questions. Barbara?
Yes, I just,
You're echoing.
yes. I just wanted to mention, one of the speakers had meant,
Barbara, is your phone on next to you?
no,
Is
no.
Oh,
She might be logged in twice.
Yeah.
Is she up twice? From there? She might be logged in twice because that would cause an echo.
Any better now? Better now?
No. Yes.
All right. All right, I'll pass. Let someone else the question.
That's your
You could
question.
write it on a paper. Type it in the comment or something.
Doris?
Thank you. You came before the community board in 2021 with your original plan to use the existing buildings. And it was a very detailed and creative use that I can understand, there are reasons for change, but what I don't understand is after 5 years, why is there such a rush to push this through for immediate decision makers, not giving the community enough time to review it? That's my first comment. My second is your very interesting drawings. When you show your area map, where you showed 4th Avenue and then Fort Hamilton Parkway, you can clearly see that Fort Hamilton Parkway is much narrower than 4th Avenue. And it is a narrow, busy street. It is an access to the highway. And this would, and you also show 99th Street as a two-way street with very wide sidewalks. I would ask anyone to walk down it's my block, to see how narrow the sidewalks are. And then you say you have 6,000 to 8,000 participants. That's 1,000 participants a day. Assuming that it's active 16 hours a day, that would be 60 people per hour on the block, which I just do not see. So I question where you get your numbers and how this will impact the block going forward.
I'll start, and maybe Albie, you can add on some details.
Certainly. Yes.
First of all, Amanda, could we just go back to the area map for a second? So we just go basically by what the city reports in terms of the street widths, and the street width here is reported at 100 feet wide.
Well, I say, have you been there?
Parked on the street?
It's just, you can see the 100 number, it's near Marine Avenue.
Right, no, I understand.
Perhaps I can
yeah.
explain. There's an
Yes.
official mapping, which is the official city map, which was done like in 1900. And it's mapped officially, if you're saying it's at 100 feet. It may not be built to 100 feet. And the ramp to the bridge may be officially in the street. So effectively,
Affecting the.
it's not 100 feet, but the official map says it's 100 feet.
Right, so per zoning, when the city looks at the street, if it's over 75 feet, they call it a wide street. So that's the reason we're referring to it. You know,
And-
and
Call
we,
it a wide street? I'm
That's-
sorry.
it's a
Yeah,
wide street,
wide street.
wide street. So that's just terminology. I think Albie's kind of addressed some of the issues around the numbers. I would just note, we also have Christina Zapansky here. Christina is an environmental consultant from GZA. As with every rezoning, we need to go through strict environmental review to see whether or not there's any adverse impacts and ones that would need mitigation. Christina, can you talk about the negative declaration and what you got here?
Okay, so yeah, so we prepared the environmental assessment statement, and I just want to note that in the environmental assessment statement, if you look through it, we don't have, because we don't have a traffic analysis in there or transportation analysis, because the threshold, because this community center is somewhat small scale, it's screened out for a detailed analysis per the environmental review. However, we did take a look and did a preliminary transportation demand forecast just to see how many trips this community center would generate. So as Albie said before, you know, the program, the day-to-day program, they're fairly small. They don't run concurrent with each other. The daycare is a fairly small daycare. So this community center is meant for the surrounding community, meaning most people are they're going to walk. You know, as stated before, there's a big focus on youth programming, youth focus. The youth they walk, they take public transit. So the majority of the trips generated by this community center would be walking and public transit. The vehicle share is very low here because this is meant to serve the local community. So at most, how we forecasted it there would be about 12 vehicle trips in one peak hour, which is very low. That represents a 5% vehicle share. And 85% of the people going to the center would likely be walking.
I'd like to respond before I go on to the next question.
Wait a minute, I
sorry,
just
go
want to comment on this map.
The
You
map.
show 100th Street and 99th Street to be 50 feet wide.
Correct.
100th Street is one of the narrowest blocks in Bay Ridge.
That's true.
There's if a car, you cannot pass a car on that block. So these numbers do not accurately represent the reality in the community.
We're happy to come back and confirm these streetlights.
Just walk it. Put your feet on the ground.
Or we can do it, we can actually do it, with measurement tools, but okay.
And on your last map where you show a street rendering, you show 99th Street as a two-way street.
Okay. All right.
So
And it's not.
so if I can respond to the first question that Doris had regarding the
timing.
initial design. So we worked through that, Doris, and we tried our best to go, and we actually went to the building department and submitting a set of plans for that detailed design that we did. We spent, I want to say, Piero, correct me if I'm wrong, over a year to come up with a very nice design initially to do an enlargement. However, once we got in front of the building department, and being that this property is non-conforming, the building department started to eat up majority of the additional space that we were building until the project became not feasible to be built. And that's when and if you want to look through the Department of Buildings BIS system, you will see that we have an Alt 1 application that was filed that's still in the disapproval status, because at the end of the day, the Department of Buildings told us, the plan examiner basically said, look, if you want to spend the money, if you want to waste, 7 million to do something that you're only gaining 3,000 square feet, sorry, then he's like, go ahead, but I would recommend that you go through a through a change of rezoning. And
But my question is, after 5 years, why do you want to get this pushed through in a month?
we're pushing to get this because we have been through the rezoning process for over 2 years. The community that has donated the money for this community center to be built, they're requesting. So, and we feel that there is a need for all the services that we provide to keep our youth off of the street, have them in a secure environment, in a good place. We need to get this completed so that we can start the building.
Thank you.
Well, I believe this process is being very rushed. And as again, we're now showing this, the rendering that shows 99th Street as a two-way street with very wide sidewalks.
We'll make that correction. I mean, these are just renderings, so we'll make that correction. It's not a problem. Piero, if you could do that, we can, for our June 15 meeting, we can have that corrected.
We can correct it. We apologize, we do show a car coming the other direction. It was an overzealous render.
And you show many more tall buildings. Most of the buildings on the west side of 99th Street were built in the 1920s. They're frame houses. So your rendering of the existing environment is not accurate either.
We try to keep it as accurate as we could on the adjacent properties. And we didn't spend time rendering the rest of the buildings down 99th.
Well, you make it appear that it's much more heavily built than the block is. And I think that is a distortion.
We can try to correct that.
Okay, Anne?
Me?
Oh, no.
Um,
Anne
I
has
think-
it.
I think that whether you look at the rendering or whether you look at the photos or whether you look at the site plan, this is an incompatible size and scale for this residential area. It's not about whether the street is 100 feet or less, or it's not a mathematics. It's just an apparent disconnect.
Thank you, Anne. I wanted to go back to the comments about the threshold in terms of the traffic. I understand that is outlined, the explanation was outlined in the seeker manual, but also the technical manual recognizes that unusual, actually I have the wording, operational or safety concerns may warrant additional review. And I think absolutely here that is certainly necessary. And in terms of the number of trips, I am not sure how that information or that data was generated, but I would say the numbers that were given to us certainly belie the reality of what the neighborhood is experiencing in terms of the volumes of cars. Now, maybe that is not daily, but when it occurs, it is a tremendous impact on the local community. I think it is wonderful that there are so many participants, that people come from other boroughs, other places, but the local community is bearing the brunt of those impacts. That's what I wanted to say with regard to the environmental review. I think it needs to go further. Is there anyone else, any other comments from the committee or questions
Yes,
in the room? Oh,
yes.
Anne?
As a local resident of the community, which as enrichment for all, but it is way out of scale. And there have been moments, and I've witnessed it, where there's overwhelming traffic.
Yep.
Just alone on Fort Hamilton Parkway.
Mhm.
And there's been parking underneath the overpass in the pedestrian zone that is at certain times of the week and at different times of the year. That's overwhelming, and it's not for parking. It's designated as pedestrian. And recently there was double parking on Fort Hamilton Parkway that restricted then everybody else in the community from trying to drive. They had to basically drive down the center of the street because of all of the double parking for the participants, the community that go into the center. And that area gets easily congested even on a good day, like because Fort Hamilton is right there, the garrison. And sometimes if that has an impact with cars coming down 100 streets, there's also this little senior center that's across the street from it. There are school buses, and it does create a hazard for pedestrians trying to cross the street. It creates a hazard for those that are trying to drive through that, and it's also illegal. And it also makes it impossible for any type of like emergency services trying to access when all of that parking is happening in a very congested spot. The other thing is we have the tennis courts, the pickleball. There, everybody's always fighting for parking on that little strip, like from Marine all the way to 101st Street. It is super congested on a good day. So that has to be taken into consideration with a project of this level. The other concern is if this gets rezoned to a larger structure, then that paves the way for other larger developments that are also going to impact the neighborhood. So, and we already have a very delicate ecosystem with the sewer system. Even when it rains, it always floods. So now we're talking more burden and stress on the sewer systems, and whenever it rains, everything backs up, and that's a flooding hazard in our area. So those are all things that everybody that has lived in this area has been experiencing as homeowners for quite some time. So these are things that also come into play, not just for the center, but what it will represent for other development of that neighborhood.
Thank you, Pam.
We have some hands.
We do have lots of hands. Want to go back to the committee?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Ralph. No.
So it's committee members, yeah.
Okay.
Could do Ralph, and then we'll go to
Yeah.
Ibrahim.
I just have a couple of questions. So for the rezoning, if someone were to come up the line and build affordable housing, how tall could it be and how large could it be?
An R6A allows for maximum height with affordability of, you can go to 95 feet. This building itself is 54 feet.
Okay.
And an R6A, so an R6A, when we see corner lots with R6A, they have a little bit of a different situation with residential because they don't need to have the same rear yard requirements. So they're generally built to 6 stories, something like that. So you would expect that if someone was going to do it for residential, it would be a 6-story, maybe even a 7-story building.
Right.
But I would note that, because obviously it's always a concern. You do have a nonprofit here. You do have a nonprofit which is organized as, I think, a 501c3. And so there's very strict regulations in terms of what they're able to do. They're not permitted to sell a property for a profit. They basically are very strictly controlled in terms of what they can do. This is for the center and for their help.
Right. But still, it paves the way again for.
Well, you say, pave the way, but this application is for this lot. City planning was very careful in terms of not expanding it beyond the boundaries of this lot.
So would it be spots on them?
No, it's not.
But it kind of sounds like it.
Spot zones are illegal. If we had a spot zoning, basically, and I've argued on spot zoning cases in court, if you have a spot zoning, it can get overturned. That's not the case here. Like I talked about, the existing R6A and as well as the street widths in the area, the availability of transportation nearby. City planning is confident that this satisfies what would be considered a well-considered zoning plan. So it's not our concern.
So I'm sorry, so if this gets rezoned, then it opens up it gets rid of the special Bay Ridge district,
No, it
correct?
doesn't. The special Bay Ridge district stays.
So it would only be this structure that would be allowed to
Correct.
go there, and everything else would remain in the
Correct.
current zone.
Right.
So the current
Unless they
zone,
changed it.
right, the current cap in the special barriers district for a community facility is 32 feet. This is a considerable upzoning. This would allow tremendous bulk and height. So that is tremendous consideration.
Right on that point, right.
You would, yes, the proposed plan is 54 feet. The allowable height is 95 feet. I mean,
Allowable, right.
Yeah.
95.
We do R6A rezonings regularly. There's an R7A rezoning we did last night for a building that's on a corner that's 7 stories, and that's for an R7A. So as a realistic matter, like just because, nobody would be interested in using this floor plate for a 9-story building. If you had the worst developer in the world, wasn't a nonprofit, was the worst, it wouldn't make sense to go 9 stories. You would expect a 6-story residential, realistic.
Is there?
But they could do that.
We
That's-
just,
they could do that.
consider,
Possibility.
it'll run with the land
Yeah.
and that's.
When it
that's
starts
it.
with one, it
We-
happens
I'm
with
sorry,
others,
can we
right?
speak one by one? Because we're lost.
Yes, understood.
So
I
please, without
actually,
interruption, it's a very important issue and we need to concentrate on it.
Understood.
thank you. I'd like to go,
That's for you. That's what I do.
I was just curious, Is there any way to keep the original facade? Because it is historic, even though it is not landmarked. It is central to the community life that has sprung up around it. I mean, it was all 191 years old. So that is of significant importance to the heart and soul of the community. And this structure, while it's stunningly gorgeous, is not in character with the community and that church and its long history of the neighborhood.
Well, as Albie mentioned, we did go through that. We actually developed a whole set of drawings. We went before the building department. That was the intention. We jumped through hoops to try to make that work. The way it's positioned, the way it's designed, it's a very small footprint. Their old trusses would be just almost impossible. We really made the effort.
But it could be possible.
No,
It could be possible.
Well, it's sort of like taking the facade in the middle of a building and trying to preserve it, the way it's positioned on the property.
Because it does have historical relevance to the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's part of the character, and that's something that neighborhoods are about. That's one of the things that we discussed. Even though it's not landmarked, it is part of the character. This is very much not a character.
I don't disagree. I think it's a very elegant little structure. I just feel like.
I'd like to go.
One more, sorry, I had one more question.
Okay, go ahead, Rob. Just-
For the environmental study, did you study the parking or the water or the stormwater drainage?
Yeah,
Because I didn't
Christina,
mention that,
yeah,
but I didn't hear
Christina, can you
anything about.
address the stormwater and the drainage?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, right now, I mean, we didn't have, because this project, the incremental increase from what's there now, or what could be built, without the rezoning is pretty minimal. But so we didn't have to do a study of the existing infrastructure in the area. However, the proposed community center is larger than what's existing there now. There is a building there now that is connected to the existing infrastructure and handling the stormwater coming from the building, and maybe I can't speak to this so well, but the stormwater now, the way the building is now, it's probably not as detained as well as it's going to be in the future with the brand new building. So the stormwater runoff would probably be improved on that site, because of the historic old building on the site does not have that capability currently.
Okay, thank you. Moving to online, Ibrahim?
Yeah, hi, good evening. Finally, we got something different this time of rezoning from regular investment to community investment, and that's encouraging. So that's one, and the questions here for the applicants. Are you going maximum?
Can you repeat what you said, please?
Well, what I'm saying
Come
is,
closer to the mic. Do you understand what he says?
No.
Okay, come closer to the mic.
how about now?
yeah.
That's much better.
Okay, so what I'm saying is this rezoning is good, encouraging, because it's investing in youth, investing in the community, and that's really good. But I have few questions here for the applicants. Are you going full height, a maximum height that for the proposed zoning R6A?
No, we're not. We're not.
54 feet, is it?
Correct.
Versus the 95, which would be the max.
With residential, with community
residential,
facility.
sorry.
All right, so it's not max. Okay, second, definitely we're gonna have some issues like parking, congestions and all of that. Is there any, is it going to be contained? What are the solutions that you guys are preparing for?
Yeah, Albie, I'm not sure if you want to talk about some of the previous conversations with regards to parking.
Certainly. So, as the community board knows, Josephine, we have made attempts from the get-go. Once we purchased this, the decrepit building in 2020, we've made attempts to find a solution for parking. We've reached out to the Parks Department. we've made many attempts, and one of those attempts and the documents that we discussed was to try to utilize the MTA's parking lot after the 100th Street, which is next to the Fort Hamilton base. That is, once the renovation for the bridge is completed, that is a potential possibility to be utilized as parking spots. As if, we could try to work with the MTA to try to turn that into a parking lot. We've had meetings with the assembly, Charles Falls, to discuss that, and he was supportive of that decision to alleviate some of the parking situation. So if that is a possibility, by the time that hopefully the construction of this building takes place and the bridge renovations are completed, that's something that we're working with and would be willing to push to get as much parking as possible there.
Where would the parking be?
Yeah, it's, what he's referring to is the MTA lot closer to the Army base behind there, which is federal land leased to the MTA.
By the garrison, so I would not feel overly confident in relying on that plan. I
Yeah.
cannot comment as to whether it would work, but it is federal land. It is concerning because in 2021, your organization publicly acknowledged the parking problem, and it has grown increasingly worse. At that time, this MTA plan was also discussed. The Parks Department plan was discussed. And unfortunately, I understand you have great participation. I don't understand the comment about the participants would mostly walk because the hundreds of cars that show up, it's overwhelming, and they park illegally. There's no other word for it. They park in front of hydrants. They park on Parks Department land. They park at the senior center where they do not have permission to park. And when that doesn't, if that is not a viable option for them, people are double parking. This is a huge concern. So again, I think the programs are wonderful, but as I reminded the committee at the beginning, this is not a comment about the merits of the programs. This is whether or not this zoning is appropriate for this site. I'd like to continue with the committee members online.
Carmelo?
Hey, good evening. Thanks for the presentation. Appreciate what you're trying to do for the community. A question and then a second question. Question that we didn't ask ourselves is why do so many people are community hungry? But that's besides the point. But with regards to what's going on with the parking, I mean, do you find this happening when you do food distribution? Is that the problem? Or is it just daily the programs being fulfilled, or at least people getting there by car?
So
This is not a daily issue.
yeah, correct. So
It is on occasion. It is not a daily issue regarding the parking. And I just want to remind everyone that this is New York City. There's a parking problem everywhere that you go into New York City, regardless of if a community facility is being built there or not. In addition to that, we have made every single attempt to ensure that people are using mass transit to come to the center. And as many people in the room who've come out here today, and you'll see that will come out, they live in the neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that is extremely diverse, and there are people living in the neighborhood that, use that facility and they walk to it. And they take the train and they take the bus that runs on Fort Hamilton. So I understand that there's always a parking concern, and there is a parking concern. The picture that you're seeing there right now is that NYPD was parked right there. And NYPD did not say anything about that parking situation.
But why are they parked there? That's pedestrian. Now how is, if they're local, I'm just curious.
Yes, yeah.
I'm just
Okay.
if everybody's local, then why are all those cars there? Unless they're not local and they're coming in from other areas, like you said, people are coming from other states, they're coming from Staten
No.
Island and other areas.
I didn't say other states.
But I'm just saying,
yeah.
or from outside the
Right,
area,
and
that are
that's,
coming in.
so again, that's one picture for
But-
one day.
But this is going on a regular basis. But
This
the
is-
question is,
But we don't know for
It's
certain
not.
that this is all happening because of the center.
yes, like how.
We're
are
not
they
sure
being
that all
told
these
you
people
can't
are
park there?
parking
Right,
because
and
of the
again,
center.
Are we
As a-
discussing the parking here?
This is one of,
but.
this is an environmental impact. I'm
Okay.
sorry, but I'd like to just keep it to the committee, please. I will give the public their opportunity to speak. Please respect the committee. Thank you.
Because you are
I-
making a discussion in one way. You don't say something else.
Please keep.
Thank you for answering the question. And
Carmel.
again, I understand it's parking and we're all very sensitive about it. But we can't, this city will grow regardless of what we want to do. That's the way cities grow. There's no new dirt in New York. And when something gets bought, usually some people want to make some changes. And this is one of those situations. While I concur with members of the committee that in scope it is a little large, and I would like to ask if there was any other way to do this without taking the zoning up so far. But if that's the next step, I don't know what else we can do here, guys. At least that's my opinion.
Before going on to the next question, I'd like to remind everyone that it is reasonable to ask whether or not the rezoning, if the Bay Ridge Development Community, I'm sorry, BRCDC, could address the greater intensity of these impacts. If it cannot be handled now, these are reasonable concerns for the community to have, particularly since the local community bears the brunt of this. And I will say, in response to Carmelo's question, being a local resident, I do know that the parking issues, the traffic, the issues that are created with the many cars, they are affiliated or associated with this center. Again, this is not speaking to the merits of the program and all the offerings. We need to get through all the issues for the sake of the community. The next, Barbara, would you like to try again?
I'm going to try again. Yes. I just wanted to echo what Doris said about the width of Fort Hamilton Parkway. It's quite a narrow street, unlike Fifth Avenue and Fourth Avenue. Also, I'm questioning the fact that the building just goes barely to the building line, unlike some of the residents. The buildings have space between the curb and the actual buildings. This building is right at the building line. It seems like an immense building amidst the scale of the neighboring homes.
Thank you, Barbara. Anne?
Yeah, my question's not going to really change anything, but I am interested to know, with so many other sites in Bay Ridge, in denser and more receptive sites than this, why your agency decided to purchase this site, clearly smack in the middle of a residential area with lots of constraints, the historic building, etc. What brought you to this site, if you don't mind just giving me a short
So I'd like
insight?
I'd like to answer that question with another question. This is the United States of America, and I don't see why we wouldn't be able to purchase a property that was up for sale. And I really don't understand that kind of question. And
I'm sorry, I'm not questioning that. I'm just
and what I'm saying is that also, I think we have to look at Bay Ridge. Bay Ridge is becoming, this is not Bay Ridge the 1980s. Bay Ridge has become increasingly more immigrant Bay Ridge. There is a large Muslim and Arab community in Bay Ridge, and they have a right to buy a property if they so choose. and to create a community center that is for every person in Bay Ridge. We are not only serving the Arab and Muslim community. So I'll be very honest with you, I find offense to that kind of question. Why did we choose that particular spot to purchase a building? It is representative of the community that lives in Bay Ridge.
I have to interject here because I understand Anne's question very well. It was not why did your group or or why did you choose this location based on your identity. The issue is all about zoning. We need to come back to zoning. There are other locations, perhaps even on 4th Avenue, that already have R6A. This was not intended as an offense. And I'd like to be very clear about that because we are doing our due diligence as we always do. We use the same amount of rigor to look through every application that is set before us. That is certainly not meant as an offense. A very rational question. Were there other properties? Are there other properties now that would have better suited your plan, especially as it grew, where you saw that you could not accommodate your vision with the R4B, particularly with all of the problems that DOB was giving you? That's the nature of the question, and we'd like to hear the answer.
Can I just stop for a second? Because Stephanie, we wanted to get back to the zoning, right?
Okay.
So as of right, you go in here and you can put in 20,000 square feet of community facilities. And let's just say, for argument's sake, that they did that, right? The 20,000 square feet of community facility space, you're not adding, they're only seeking, through this rezoning, they're going to be obtaining 13,000 square feet more space, which is basically barely 2 reduced floors that you see on top of the structure. We're not talking about 33,000 square feet of a food pantry, facility, distribution center. It's not a factory. If you look at the actual use of the use on top and the additional uses, you're looking at conference room space, some meeting space and such, that you should, if you just take it as a given, let's say, that the 20,000 square feet that they're allotted as of right could be, and by the way, we all know because we bring applications at BSA, that on a regular basis, people go to BSA and they basically make applications for larger buildings and such. But if you just take the 20,000 square feet that they have as of right, they could basically be performing the same essential functions that they're seeking to do now in 20,000 square feet. In fact, you could probably argue that if they didn't have space for people to come inside and for deliveries to take place on the property and for people to queue up in the property, that you would likely have a worse position than if you didn't have the opportunity to have the space on the site. So yes, zoning is important and we're supposed to look at the essentials of zoning. And the truth of the matter is, like, you got R6A on this block. You have, and despite the fact that everyone understands the structure of Fort Hamilton Parkway, it's a 100-foot wide street, and I will sign an affidavit to that respect. And it also happens to be up against an elevated expressway and a park. And those things are looked at in zoning. If you were in the middle of an R12A community and you try to put an R6A, I wouldn't defend that case. But you're not doing that here. And it's whether or not, look to the additional 13,000 square feet of program space on top and see whether or not that's really causing the issue here, or it's whether or not maybe you just don't want this facility here. Because the zoning works.
I object.
No.
It's a question to look at.
I object to that.
It's a question of places that I can wish.
This is still within committee discussion, please. I believe that the questions regarding environmental impact are legitimate. We do not have any answers. We have not been given.
We have a negative declaration on this application where city planning has determined to a factual matter that there is no negative impact proposed pursuant to this rezoning. We can give you that letter tonight.
And I also understand that the residents that have contacted this board are dealing with impacts. And we would prefer that the community can reconcile them together. And those are outstanding issues that are of great concern here. And then I will leave it at that and go to the next question. Doris?
I just want to comment on something Mr. LaBelle just said. He said it's only 13,000 square feet more. That happens to be a 60% increase over the allowable space. So I think the word only or merely is quite misleading. I live on the block. I have no issue with the uses, but I think this rezoning is too big. And I have a question. Currently, the space is, part of the space is used as a mosque. I don't see any religious area. I see a conference room, a meeting room. Will there be religious services in this facility?
For the people who work there will be a mosque.
I didn't understand that.
Sorry, so I'll respond to that, Doris. Currently, the facility is during COVID, we leased part of the facility because as you are very well aware, this facility was closed for over 10 years and it was falling apart when we purchased it. When the property was purchased and COVID happened, part of the space was leased from BRCDC to the Islamic Society of Bay Ridge so that they could hold their congregation there in order to avoid people praying in the street with the uh, restrictions that were placed. So as of right now, the way that this facility is designed with community facility space, with multi-purpose rooms. What happens down the line, we have to renegotiate with Islamic Society of Bay Ridge if it's necessary for them to utilize the space. But currently, the way that we're looking at this facility, it will be a community center. So future uses, any future use, whether that's going to be a multi-purpose room or a mosque, will have to be discussed once this project is built. But as of right now, we're building it as a community center with multi-purpose rooms.
Thank you.
But I am concerned because I know that you have received several $1 million from the city council. Or it has been pledged to you. I don't know that you have received it.
We have not received, no.
Okay, but it is pledged to you.
Correct. And those monies will be utilized for a community facility, purely non-religious aspect. 100%.
But then if you decide to use some of it for a religious aspect, is that a proper
Anything,
use of city funds?
correct. So anything that will be done under a religious aspect, if there was to be one, will be funded directly by that religious organization, not the BRCDC. So any programming and any activity that would be, if they were to utilize the space, that or part of the space would be done under that religious organization. It would be leased just like any other tenant would utilize the space. We would lease that space to a tenant, which they would do their own build out.
Can you give me an example of another facility that used city funding that leases to a religious organization?
You have so many yeshivas, synagogues, churches that have done that.
But you're not giving me a specific example.
Like I mentioned, you're looking at a lot of yeshivas and churches that do something similar, where they purchase the property as a community facility. It's built as a community facility, and then down the line, a part of that space will be utilized. If they utilize it by a religious aspect, they have an agreement, and that religious aspect will build the facility on their own dime. So just like any tenant, if I was to build a 10-story building and I have retail space at the bottom, I will lease the space out to a retail tenant and they will build it to their described and preferred build out. It's as simple as that.
Thank you. Appreciate the explanation.
No problem.
There, Ralph,
I just have one quick comment. It's going to be quick.
please go ahead.
It's about the parking. The parking, yes, it's disruptive and it's terrible what's happening there, but it's an unsafe condition. That's the issue. Ambulances and fire trucks can't get through. And when people park in front of the hydrants, it's dangerous. That's really the issue for parking more than anything. So.
Thank you for your comment. I know we have a lot of questions online and in the room. Well,
I have a question. Do you have, apart from this location, do you have other locations where you provide programming? to the
Yes.
community?
We have an office space on 68th Street and Fifth Avenue.
Okay, so is that not sufficient between both locations instead of trying to create one big center?
Yeah.
Like you have multiple
It's
locations?
an office space, maybe smaller than this office space, where we provide services to the community for free. So if people need SNAP benefits, they come in and meet with a caseworker. So I don't know how we could possibly do the work out of a small rented office.
Okay, so
Thank
we
you.
have, we have people, a bunch of.
Just
Oh, okay. Oh, so Pierre,
I'm just wondering, you're coming here to us to ask for us to agree to rezone it, and that's fine. The community is coming here complaining about the parking, which is a legitimate complaint. Is there not a way to build a building, but deal with the food distribution? It seems to be where the parking issue comes. It seems to be one, no, it's all the time.
It's
It
both.
is-
Ramadan.
It's both.
It was.
I believe it's
great.
associated with the religious services,
Yes.
which is understandable. They have a lot of congregants,
That come.
participants that come. So it's a very specific times, but nonetheless, even though it is not daily, when it does happen and it happens frequently, that is what we've heard from the community. I've witnessed it, but it's understandable in some circumstances, but overall, it has produced very unsafe conditions. And I'll leave it at that.
That was at church, right?
Food distribution.
Yes, it was.
The
Just
issue,
want to make sure.
and
Yes.
maybe there's a way to spread that out, or buy a couple of trucks and deliver the food so that people wouldn't come. I don't know, there might be a way to mitigate this. Now, if it's a religious service, that's a whole
There's a lot
other.
of
So
hands on
with the
that.
food line, which is a
Okay,
big question, can they line up outside and they tie their carts the night before? Because they want to hold their space in line, I've seen it.
So,
But do they not go inside for their food distribution? Because it seems like everything's being served outside from a truck. Like, instead of moving everybody inside.
So again, I think Albie discussed this with the new facility. The space for food distribution would be on our lot and not infringe upon the neighborhood per se. And like you said, there are other solutions, like having maybe half of the people come during part of the week and then the other half on another part of the week. And that's certainly a possibility that we can look at. It's not something that we can't do, but like she said, we're here to talk about the zoning, not the actual programming, although we're of course willing to always tweak the programming. Look, we have been, I want to say, neighbors that have gone door to door to the neighborhood and spoken to the people in the neighborhood, besides serving them and being as neighborly as possible. So I don't think that we are infringing upon anyone's rights illegally. For example, if anyone has put their cart there, it has been on the, our property and not anyone else's property. But yes, that's certainly a possibility of doing maybe multiple. And that's something we can discuss along the line. But like you said, this is about the zoning.
the zoning
Right,
and
well-
land use, which also includes the impacts, just to be clear. I
Right.
need to go to, we have so
That's
many
gonna give
questions.
them-
Ibrahim?
Yeah, very, very quick. I'd recommend also to the developer, to the organization, to pay a visit to Staten Island Community Center. They're doing very good in traffic, where they hire these security guards. They make a traffic control during the congestion. Hopefully that's a recommendation for you guys to make sure that we in very New York City, it's crazy traffic. So it's not a big deal, but it could be something that we control. Now for the applicant,
Certainly.
the runoff water, that I'm sure this is an old building and it does not have any control. Do you have any plan to control the stormwater that's going to be going to the system, like retention tanks or roof retentions, something like that? Are you planning to have that?
That's a good question. We had planned on that in the previous submission to DOB, so we would probably be doing some sort of detention or retention, I should say. But that hasn't been planned yet. It's still too preliminary.
Thank you. I'd like to move to online questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vivian Akel? Vivian, you'll be allowed to unmute.
Okay. Yeah, so I had three questions and a few comments. Some of them have already been addressed. I'm wondering why no plan has been made for underground parking, as most new buildings would consider, so that workers could park there. This is a very, very densely populated area for cars. I've lived here for over 40 years and it's gotten progressively worse. So that's my first comment. When you talk about converting to a possibly a mosque or an area of worship, I've been here when those services have happened, and the car traffic has been overwhelming on Fort Hamilton Parkway, which is very narrow. It's an access to the bridge. It is dangerous. And even the potential of that during high holy days is very, very dangerous for pedestrians and for emergency vehicles. This is a neighborhood that, because it's near the water, has a specific problem with large rodents. And I'm not talking about rats, I'm talking about raccoons and different kinds of animals that show up on our block here on 98th Street and on Fort Hamilton Parkway. And additional food distribution and debris is a very big problem. I don't know how you plan to handle that. Also, the crowding, given the fact that there are major buildings that are being converted as well. The project at Staples, the 92nd Street project, that all contributes to more crowding in this neighborhood, which cannot, with the R train is the only rapid transit that gets people into Manhattan. Our infrastructure does not support all of this. And so I am not objecting to only this project, but to all of the projects that are being thrown at this one neighborhood, which will markedly change the quality of life here as we know it. Those of us who've lived here for years, who've invested in our homes to keep it at a certain pace. Yes, I realize this is New York City. Trust me, I realize it. But that does not mean that we have to accept every project that brings more people, more debris, more traffic, and more stress. We just can't lay down and say, go ahead. And I would absolutely object to this project and the others. So I'm not singling you out.
Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Vivian.
Next.
Kelly Carroll? Kelly, you should be able to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you, Community Board 10 Land Use Committee and the team that here tonight for the request. I have a couple comments. I'll be brief because I know there's a lot of people after me waiting. You know, we're very lucky in Bay Ridge to have a special zoning district. It's very rare for any neighborhood to have it in New York. So I disagree about the spot zoning thing because the R6A actually is a part of a commercial overlay spine. And that doesn't touch any part of Fort Hamilton Parkway in Bay Ridge. However, there is an R6A along Fort Hamilton in Diker Heights, and the building stock there reflects the built environment much differently in that area. And so I think a lot of the tension is coming from how this building will just simply look and feel alien to its immediate context. And so one question I wanted to pose was, you know, the materials, it's bright white. It's not going to look really good when all the pollution falls onto it from the on-ramps to the Verrazano. So materials are a big thing. But more importantly, just to stay on the zoning topic, you know, if you're not building it to bulk for this one site's rezoning, you should really think about making it fit into an actual contextual zoning for what you want to do. Because my fear is if this nonprofit walks away from this site and it's not built to bulk, and then another developer buys it, they're going to say, oh, but this is an R6A and we can actually build a 9-story residential building. And then there goes the neighborhood, as they say, right? So there's a lot of precedent here that needs to be thought about. And that's pretty much all I have to offer, other than just very quickly. Muslims have actually been in Bay Ridge for over 100 years. They started moving here after they made some money opening their businesses on Atlantic Avenue. So they've been a part of the community for a very long time. And I wish the team the best of luck. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity here to work together to make something work for all sides. But those are my questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Kelly.
David Turner?
Can Pierre
Oh,
just respond?
oh, yes, I'm sorry. Okay, yes.
You want to just talk about the materials
Okay.
and maybe some of the choices and whether you can make modifications?
Well, but we can always make modifications. I mean, the materials are subjective, right? Whether somebody likes brick, which is the predominant material on the street. In this case, she referred to it as white. It's meant to be a limestone. So I was looking for a stone material that had longevity to it and that would maintain a good quality versus stucco or something like that. So the intent was to make it a good quality masonry product. And as I said, whether it's red brick or color like that, I think if that's what's holding us up, that's an easy way to fix this.
And I'd like to also address, thank you, Piero, what you said about if somebody else comes along afterwards and buys this, if you read our bylaws, you'll see that Bay Ridge Community Development Center is a community center, and that building was bought with community money that was raised in our community. And our bylaws reflect that if, let's say, BRCDC goes belly up as an organization, that facility can only be used as a community center or community facility. We were very intentional when we did this in terms of creating a facility that is for the community and not for someone to profit from, or individuals to profit from later on down the line if it is quote unquote, like you said, sold. So that if you have a chance and you'd like to go to the Charities Bureau website, you can certainly read our bylaws.
Thank you.
David Turner? You should be able to unmute, David. David?
I'm sorry, I did not have
Okay.
a question. I'm not sure how that happened.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Romeo Petrick?
Hey all.
Romeo?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, so you're lucky the basketball game didn't start yet, so I'm going to keep it brief.
Okay.
Something was mentioned earlier in the presentation about the exact numbers not about what the numbers were of all the participants that are showing up to the location for whatever services they require. I'm looking for exact numbers. You guys have been doing this for a while now, yes? You need to have exact numbers of how many people you're serving food for, and I'm assuming that for the youth and the young kids that are going to show up afterwards in the space that's being provided for them, those exact numbers as well. Parking has already been discussed. Everything else has been discussed. The sewer system is going to be bad. They're at the bottom of the hill, and I actually went on this New York City's zoning map and saw why Fort Hamilton is listed as 100 feet across. Because it is from 92nd Street to 86th Street, not from 92nd Street to 101st. So forget about that being 100 feet wide. It's not. I'll walk down a block with a tape measure and measure it if I have to. So for everybody that's telling me it's 100 feet, based on what the city did in the 1900s, they forgot they put a bridge there and squeezed Fort Hamilton Parkway from 92nd Street down to 101st. That's all I got.
Thank you. Jay Shear? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Sorry, I incorrectly put my name. It's Joseph Sharapa. So
Okay.
I'm gonna. There's a lot of frustration going around, and I wanna speak purely from an architectural standpoint, on facts, not get into emotion. I am a Bay Ridge resident, but I'm gonna put emotion aside, and we'll just focus on that. So reviewing what I've seen thus far, there's obviously been a lot of time And I would imagine a lot of time has went into feasibility and study on the program to drive the current layout and programming of the square footage of this building. So I echo what my other community members have said. You know, where is that data to drive the multi-purpose square footage, multi-purpose rooms, the sizing of the pool, egress, who's coming in and out. So that's one question I want to throw out there. You know, so everybody can think about that for the next time that we meet. Again, we do see a lot of multi-purpose rooms, and it's designated at that. We won't get into it now. I understand there's possible future intention for the room, so we'll leave it there. The other questions I don't think we've gotten. Obviously, we know we have infrastructure issues. There's going to have to be a significant amount of infrastructure upgrades for electric, gas. This is it was a much older property originally. And in order to service all these other amenities, you know, how I asked the community, and I also asked everybody else, how is that going to take place? So there's going to be a lot of frustration when that has to take place if it does go forward. The other thing is you're adding cooking, you're adding kitchen, you're adding a pool. There's a lot of things that we're not talking about, such as, you know, commercial exhaust into that neighborhood, preparation for catering, warming, cooking, stuff as such. How is that exhaust going to help the neighborhood and the community and the people that have been there for years and are established? You have grease and whatnot, right? And other things. You also have a pool. I know from my own expertise in doing these amenities, there's dehumidification for exhaust for those pool. There's a smell of chlorine that unintentionally just gets exhausted out to the neighborhood. A lot of things there, right? Noise control, things such as that. Is there going to be, how are we preventing noise impact to the community, right? When there's pool activities, there are microphones, things as such. The other thing I asked is, and I really, again, I'm going to stress, I'm not getting into politics, race, ethnicity, but if this complex is being built for the community in all of Bay Ridge, we chosen a very Moorish design instead of a very colonial design that fits the Bay Ridge community. Forget colors. The design itself has a lot of influences that does not share the adjacent neighborhood. So if you're welcoming the neighborhood, you welcome all. And that I feel is another important point, because it feels if you're not building to the neighborhood, you're alienating your neighborhood. And that's something I ask, you know, our architects and design and whoever's investing in this to think about. Aside from all the other I would say logistic issues and destination issues, we do, you know, I'm going back to that question, and it got turned around sideways. Why this spot? It's just a lot of investment, putting everything aside. If I was a developer, the amount of investment, challenges, and that need to be undertaken for this spot is quite substantial. You have parking, you have street, you have adjacent neighborhood, neighboring buildings, loading and unloading for food deliveries, trucks going through, turning radius, having to, you know, potentially talk to the MTA and others to get parking. And then we say we want to maximize the parking, which shows, I know there's studies, supposed studies, which we haven't seen, and I think we should all see on the environmentals and foot traffic, and it's all going to be MTA. Why would we need to do that? So there's a lot of questions, and again, doesn't say we can't do this, but if we're gonna say we're gonna do this now, we need all the information in front of us to make an informed decision. So everybody can make an informed decision. So I don't see that. I don't, you know, when I was with this community members 2-3 months ago, and for a simple liquor license, the questions are, is there going to be noise outside? Is there going to be this? Everybody goes through this. This is much more. This is much more, and we're talking for inviting a much larger influx of people into the neighborhood on top of what's already being done to date. So we have to take all that into consideration, and you know, I worry about pedestrian, I worry about safety, I worry about outdoor people gathering outside and how that affects their neighborhood, cleanup, additional. There's so many questions. It's not that anybody's being singled out, but when you're building for masses, it could be 500, 200, 100 in an area that's not meant or is not typically built with the infrastructure to support it because it's mostly residential. We have to do our homework. We have to ask those questions. We have to press. So I'm just putting things out there, questions and thoughts to my community members, to my fellow residents in the Bay Ridge area. These are things we have to think about. And if we haven't thought about it, and we haven't asked those questions, and we haven't gotten the answers to those questions, on June 15th, I would love for all that to be presented so we can make a fully informed decision as a group. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if I may respond to that very, very briefly, just so everybody is fully aware, this site has been a church for over 100 years. There, prior to us purchasing this location, there was a fully commercial kitchen there, so there is an exhaust system in place. Our kitchen is going to be similar in size, and the exhaust system that's there will be modified to be something even better. So a lot of the utilities and the spaces that were being utilized prior to us purchasing this facility were still being utilized. So whether congregants were coming there every Sunday and every Wednesday, or whenever there was a church mass, these same questions were there, so they should have been addressed and were addressed 100 years ago. Our as far as rodents and food distributions, we've been doing that for the past 6 years. We have a great relationship with sanitation, so they come and they pick up every time we have our food distribution right after our distribution is completed. So there is no issue. So we've been doing this for the past 5.5 years, and we have not seen an increase on those. And we make sure that as part of the community and be neighborly, we clean that and remove everything that's there. As mentioned, as far as the lines, we're trying to mitigate those lines, and we're going to do our best to find solutions to that. And the last question regarding the pool, we have Fort Hamilton has an outdoor pool. So if the concern for the neighborhood and the smell was there, then that should have been addressed before anything. This is an indoor pool, would be an indoor pool, and it's not as massive as what Fort Hamilton base has.
Thank you. Is there, are there
So
other?
there's, so I just want to tell you, there are 33 questions in the chat. Like, we can't go through all of those, so I know we're gonna likely have another meeting on June 8th.
So for the questions that are in the comments, how do they get expressed for the people that have interest in just the plan? From the local
Are we able to
community?
capture those questions?
Yeah, we could. I mean, you know, I know I think there was some questions in the room.
in the room. All right, I'll move this way, so.
Okay.
Please.
That building has been, purchased basically.
Listen to the new problem, Illinois State. I live only one house on. Okay, and simply to address the parking issue, I think you guys didn't mention the school on 92nd Street. Whenever those kids goes out of school, everyone takes Fort Hamilton as a parallel to Fourth Avenue, and it's the least traffic anyway. Like, if you're really close, like, let's talk about the actuality, right, rather than just having a theory about it. Every day, almost from 5 o'clock, whatever, like, from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock, it's already crowded. It's not because of the center. That's number one. Number two, as I said, I just live one house away. The only time I can go out with my wife is when I drop my kid to that center. It's that simple. I don't like any, at the end of the day, it's just to serve the people who live around the center. Isn't that for it? That's just what I have to say, nothing more. By the way, I'm an engineer and I do general contracting for a living. And when it comes to the technicalities, I can do a lot of it. But at the end of the day, buildings are just to serve the people. So let's just focus on serving the people. That's all.
Thank you for your comment. I was going this way. Please.
My name is Salah Rabah. I'm a descendant of Palestinian immigrants. My grandmother and grandfather immigrated here in the 50s. They lived here, they worked here. My parents were born here, born and raised. I went to PS 127. I was born and raised there as well. Then I went to IS 259. I went to Brooklyn Technical High School afterwards, and I'm currently at NYU doing my undergraduate degree. And I am a regular, I go to this center almost every day, and I also am a volunteer there. One thing that was said in the presentation is that this was a non-conforming building. As someone who has been there, who's there almost every day, and has been to every corner of that center, it is crumbling. There's leaks in the roof, and there's structural cracks on the walls. I could show anyone here. I'd be more than welcome to take you there and show you those cracks. I would be the first person to say that a historical site should be preserved, especially a church. But this center was not in use for more than a decade. There's mold in the basement. It's a reconstruction is necessary. It's simply not feasible to say, can we use the center as it is. Furthermore, when the organization first bought this center, the manager of the maintenance there, Ghazi is his name. You can go to the center anytime, you can learn his name, he's there every day. He said the first winter, when he went out to shovel, the neighbors came to him and they said, this sidewalk has not been shoveled in 10 years. This is amazing. Why are you guys doing it? And he said, we bought this center, we're bringing it back to life. One of the board members said that this was a heart and soul of the community. That is disingenuous. That center was abandoned for 10 years. To say that this is like now you want to preserve it, it's crumbling. You have the church itself, and you have adjacent to it the building that the pastor used to live in. I don't know the formal name, but it's
The rectory.
yes, it's yes, it's 3 or 4 floors. There's collapsed ceilings in that apartment. There's mold growing on the walls. It is in desperate need of a repair. And the food distribution. I think any NGO is zealous about their numbers. When the number was said 6,000 to 7,000 participants, I can assure you that on a food distribution, there's not 6,000, 7,000 people lined up in front of that door in Bay Ridge. That is a number that's calculated. First off, when you give a bag to someone, we're calculating the family that's involved. So that one person actually represents like 5 people. Furthermore, food distribution is not the only thing we offer. They offer SNAP benefits, senior services, youth services, and one additional point is that the food distribution that actually goes on there is produce. It's fresh produce that's delivered the day before and given out. There's no kitchen preparation. There's none of that. It's simply and the people actually don't even enter the building. It's a handoff thing. It's a grocery bag that we hand off. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Victoria, you're next one.
Hi, Dee Dee, I spoke to you a long time ago, I think, when you guys were first talking about the building. I have to tell you personally, I'm a preservationist. I work on preservation and we have tried to get the building out. It's very hard to get anything landmarked in Bay Ridge, not because it's not valuable or worth, but it's just hard in general with politics. So I was very happy when I first spoke to you guys because we were talking about saving the building. So I'm kind of really upset about it now. And the other thing is I worked on the zoning with a lot of people in this room, with Councilman Gentili. And so the zoning does matter to us. It's not just 13,000 and this, we went from, block to block to make sure we could preserve it for everybody. We want to keep the beauty of that stuff. So just please be aware of that, be sensitive to those things, as well as the Bay Ridge Special District, we fought to keep that. So that's the thing, because when I look at what it's becoming now, it does look like a box. So the question about why there, like for instance, I work at the Baywood Center, right? They put a new space, but they took an existing building by the pier. It's a box. You can do whatever you want with it. So it does seem like you're trying to fit a lot of things and you're restricted because of the building and the zone and the parking. So I can understand why Fourth Avenue or someplace else would kind of make sense. I don't know if that's something you can even do or way beyond. It seems like it might maybe even be cheaper to do that.
So when we spoke so long ago, and Piero is, he can, give testimony for this. When we first started talking about the project, that was the intent. And we did, like he said, almost 2 years of going back and forth with the building department, trying to save what we can. And I think I've said this so many times. I'm even in touch with the diocese that sold us that church. And I have reached out to them personally and I have said to them, listen, this is a church that was there serving people for 100 years. We want to be there serving people for another 100 years, as Salah just mentioned. And I said to them, listen, we're putting in a museum space. Part of that museum space for me is doing a document walk of the actual church. I even asked the church, I said, can you, their diocese is in Long Island, can you please provide me with copies of the documents of the original church so I can create that document walk so the people in this neighborhood understand and know what was here before BRCDC, right? And they said to me, believe it or not, this is the church. They said to me, we can't even believe that you're even considering doing something like that, right? So we are trying, or we have tried very, very hard to stay within the framework of the church, as Piero can attest to. And then at the same time, to try to preserve for the community and for the neighborhood that worship there as much as we could. And believe me, and I remember talking to you and many, many other people about that. One thing that's really important to note about the church, and I'm not trying to like slander the church in any way. Like I said, they did great work for 100 years. The last pastor out of that rectory was selling drugs.
Yeah, that's
That was,
what happened.
yes.
It wasn't that the local people, even the
Right.
parishioners wanted that to happen, but then the people in charge opposed that church.
I get
They
it.
were fighting it, so
I
it
get
wasn't
it.
just like people just forgot
And,
about it.
and in addition, that church is called for those of you that don't know the historic value, it's called the Church of the Generals.
Yes.
2 Confederate generals.
Not
who
only,
owned-
No.
actually,
Hold on, 2
no.
Confederate generals.
And there's 2
Hold on.
Union generals.
Hold on,
So
2,
it's
right,
balanced.
but
It's
2
a balance.
Confederate generals
No.
that owned slaves.
It's a balance.
That were worshipped in that church as well. So when, by the way, if you look at, there's a tree in the yard in that church. And that tree, there was a placard there that said, this tree was donated by the Daughters of the Confederacy. The church, not us, took that placard down because of the racist connotations that were there in that church. But the point is, we tried.
Just to clarify,
Yes.
one was, they were both, as far as I know, generals there before the Civil War. So I think Lee and Grant both had worship.
Slocum,
But
Sedgwick.
later on, one became Confederate and one was on the other side.
And Lee was a captain when he was
Yeah,
stationed.
the point of the
And we
matter
are
is-
so diverse.
We tried with Piero, like you said, to maintain some of what was there in terms of the building. And when the building department came back, it was the impossibility that this was the absolute last resort for us. And he can attest
I
to
just
that.
want to talk, again, we love to, that site is actually 3 separate buildings. There's a wood frame out 3-story rectory, that's there in bad shape. None of them have similar levels. The church itself. So when we looked at trying to use what was there and trying to make them work and trying to, remove things to get things on the same level, it was really like very difficult to try to accomplish doing it. And it was very costly.
Can I explain something?
Yeah,
I do this for them. And I have to be a certified contractor at CB10. We will be reservation of the MCN one, the Museum of University. So for reserving, when it comes to actuality, I see what the committee did here, trying to go down like 2 floors below the grade in order to not to come here. Because this like rezoning is the last resort. So they actually use the max that they can go down, which is almost like 32 down. When you go down that deep, like underneath this this surrounding perimeter, it's really almost impossible to preserve it. Not to mention the structural instability that is in there already. When he was talking about the leaks, I was the one who saw that.
I'm not,
But the point is, there is.
We cannot rebut it, ladies, we cannot rebut it, it
Okay,
has
all
to go
right.
through.
Yeah.
Then if you have something to say, please just go through.
To you, I was trying to bring to you why it's
Sorry.
sensitive to the community.
Thank you, Habib.
That it has a lot of history and a lot of layers, that it's not just so simple.
May I'm going to have to
Okay.
interject. I have about the ability to take certainly Richard's question, and then I know there was a woman, and we are approaching 9 PM, so. If
Chair, the
Richard, please-
procedural question, I heard something about potentially rolling over into a Monday meeting. Would that be the case?
There is a Monday meeting scheduled. However, we do know that procedurally, we have 90 days from the date of filing to render a recommendation
Of the full.
in front of the full board. So this is a one step at a time situation.
I was just gonna suggest that, having, just conferred, that to the extent that, we did roll over to Monday, we'd be happy to have an opportunity as a team internally to talk about some of the things we've heard and.
Yeah, and we could maybe go through some of the questions and send them
Sure.
to you, those that we didn't have, so we're not, so we
That'd be-
could just jot them down and write them
I'm
down.
also happy to take a transcript of all the questions that were posted and we can.
Yes, we'll do that.
But I did
yes.
want to get, there was a question here and a question there, so those are the last two. Thank you.
I have a comment as one of the residents in that block. The impact that it has had, not only for myself, for my neighbors. And my neighbors are not here because they just got the notice, and the elderly that don't speak English well, so they don't even know how to come and speak. So I'm speaking for that block.
Please let her.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Please, if she knows her neighbors, please let.
Nothing that blocks.
She doesn't need to say the name. It's a public forum. If you would like to discuss this afterward, you may, please continue.
When they first the property and they were coming, I was excited because, again, service to the community. Now, I like to know what the definition of community is, because all those services are not being used by the people in those blocks, most of them. Like I said, the elderly, they don't go in there for food or collect the food. They don't go in there for any meetings or anything like that. Except the issue, parking. The cars parked. When they park during the holidays, it actually became a safety concern and issue. I couldn't even walk my dog under the bridge because all the cars parked, and then they take off after the service or whatever it was, boom, not looking. Somebody's gonna get seriously hurt. The other issue, our houses that face the front of Fort Hamilton, their garages are in the back. There's a court yard that's where the cars come in and out to get out into the street, facing right in front of the church. People hanging out, blocking the driveway or double park where you cannot get out. There are some first responders that live in that block that need to be able to get in and out and not be fighting with the people that are double parked. It's a very narrow street.
Mhm.
So that becomes an issue for us that have to get in and out into that courtyard to the street on 99th Street.
Thank you, understood.
You know, it is a concern. We want to work together.
Mhm.
It's not the group, it is how is the service is being handled, the garbage. I'm gonna take a picture of my way here. All the buses, it's just changed the neighborhood so much because of the way things are being done. And again, it's something up for discussion. My husband actually wrote a letter to the head of I forget, I got the copy at home. A while back, addressing those issues because we couldn't get in and out of the house. And there was never a response.
Maybe that we can address those issues
So it's
later.
not very good neighborhood.
Thank you for your comments. Please go ahead, and you'll be the last.
Hi,
Oh,
good evening, everybody.
Habib.
So first and foremost, I'd like to commiserate with the aspect of that it is a beautiful building, I agree. And change is hard, but Change is just an aspect of life, and the community is going to change to reflect the people that live in it. And I also commiserate with all the drivers. I personally do not drive like many of the people who are also in their 20s and have grew up in New York City. I don't drive. I also live really close to the center, and I walk over along with many of the people who I know that also go to the center. So personally, the people that I know do not drive, but I understand that a lot of people who are going are drivers. And I would also like to raise that if the senior center, I understand they have issue with us using the parking lot, but when I have passed by the senior center, the parking lot has been empty. And so if it's an, I don't know if it's an issue of politics, but if there's space, then we should be able, then we should use it. And so that's also to the point that I think we need to put people over parking, and a senior center like this would be not the first of its kind, but something that I have not seen in my many years of living in Brooklyn and living in South Brooklyn. And so I think the question should be how we can mitigate these issues. If garbage is a problem, which I have went and actually helped them fill those bags that we distribute. If garbage is an issue, it is. I live close and I have a bunch of friends who also live close by, and I'm sure that as Muslims, we love to serve our community and we would come by and clean up that garbage. But as somebody else had mentioned, that building is now being serviced in a way that it has not been serviced before. I would say that that area in Bay Ridge is not neglected per se, but a building, of course, that has abandoned for 10+ years is going to be such. And a swimming pool is also something that I know that for me and many of the people in my life, community members have also yearned for. And I would say that it is notable that certain people are not sometimes able to use other swimming pool spaces. I think we should take note of the fact that many of the drownings that happened were from Muslim women. So that is something that I am personally very passionate about. There has been like beach drownings, and they're Muslim women. Sometimes they have not been able to use other pool spaces. So again, this is a community center that would serve the people in the community. Change is difficult, but I think we would all love to see the youth be able to have a space that is not simply school. And there's nothing like this that I have seen in the community.
Thank you very much for your comments. And then finally, Habib.
You know, Stephanie, you just hit the point when you said it's the merits. I do agree on that, but I look also beyond merits. What do we gain if we continue just looking to the merits? Do we gain anything or we go backwards? I look at things the way I did a development on 69th Street. It was a different issue. Some of the questions which Anne raised, why is this location? And I'm going to tell you, as an answer to that question, with all due respect to Bibi, it was for sale for years. Nobody moved in and said, oh, let me save or preserve that church. Nobody did. They came through, and I'm not promoting or trying to sell you something. I'm just saying my opinion. It's only my opinion. I am a friend. I am not on their board, but you know, I am a community man. I represent the Arab American Association and the president. So I see things the way people see it, maybe a little bit inside. The question was 6,000 to 8,000. Who gave you these numbers? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, baby. These numbers are way whacked. We have
just 1 minute.
Let me just.
It's 500 times we consider that family.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to explain it. Yeah, I heard them.
You
I
could
heard
flesh
them
out
explaining.
details in the future. We have
You know,
another meeting coming
when
up.
they said 6,000 to 8,000, it was not attendees. It was who we are serving. When I serve food at the association, I say I served 8,000. Actually, Josephine, she came twice or 3 times. Do we have 8,000 out there?
Not when I was
No,
there.
we don't have. You have 400 or 500 multiplied by 6 or 7. That's the number we say. So 6,000 to 8,000, when you say it, people get scared, you know, in the block. Oh, 6,000 to 8,000 a day, it's impossible. To the pool, and again, you know, this is what I understood because I was involved in some conversation with them. The pool is going to be on not on a daily basis. It's going to be different hours, different days, different genders, everything is different. So when we say the pool will be attending 20 people, so 20 people in the pool is not too many. And I'm going to make a statement, and I will finish now. If we reject any improvement or any changes in our world, we will be living in the old earth. And I am not promoting anything. Please do not misunderstand me. I am saying we have to look into the changes. We have to do changes. If these changes benefit 100 out of 120, that these changes are good. But if these changes really harm 100 of 120, then these changes are not. So I think we should really look into the matter deeper than the merits, with all due respect.
My statement was that the programming is wonderful, but we cannot base this discussion
And you're
on the
100%.
merits of that.
You are 100%.
And I would
that
like to
agree.
be, I would like to be clear, there is no question here as to whether or not there will be a community facility, or if there will be programming, or if there will be an expanded BRCDC. The question is, R6A or R4B, or something in between? That is the fundamental question. When we're talking about zoning and land use, we must examine the impacts to the community as well, and whether or not it is contextual. I understand that there are a lot of preservationists who feel strongly about preserving the space. I understand that, absolutely. No one has said you can't change things. I would like to come to, for the issues to be reconciled in a way that meets everybody's needs, and not in a contentious manner. So having said that, be happy to continue this discussion, but with data, with facts, with answering some of the concerns that were raised this evening. Monday, June 8th, 7 p.m. Same place. And then we'll see what happens after. But thank you all. I want to thank the BRCDC for coming to the table. I appreciate your time. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Josephine, you're only scheduling these on days when the Knicks are in the finals, is that right?
Well, the Knicks, we didn't